I am Reverend Karen Lewis. I am the Senior Minister of the New Vision Center, and it is my joy to be here. I think everybody should start the morning by cutting a ribbon like that. It gives you such upliftment. And I want to take a moment and say hello and welcome to all of those who are new or newer and here in the sanctuary online. I am so excited that you are invited into this teaching and that you answered the call to come and listen as we, during these first 5 weeks of the year, are anchoring into the foundation of what is the science of mind and what are we here as the Centers for Spiritual Living doing. So welcome, welcome. Before I start my talk, a riddle of simplicity. I want to bring greetings from such convention. I think we have a picture here. I ran into Ernest Holmes right up there. We took a picture. And afterwards I said, I don't remember Ernest having such pink cheeks. Well, come to find out, a lot of the women felt inclined to kiss him with their lipsticks. That's what happened. But it was a wonderful convention. And one of the evenings when I came back from a day of convention, a thank you note was in our room, and it was handwritten by the executive leadership team. And this is the thank you note for all that New Vision Center has done to bring forth in ever greater ways this wonderful teaching. And this is a thank you note for all of us, for each and every one of you here, online. I will leave it up here. Take the time, read it. It's really meaningful. So thank you for all that you do. All right. So a couple of weeks ago when I spoke, I came up with a couple things that science of mind is not. I don't know if you remember, but I was talking about that science of mind is not religious science. It is not Scientology. And so I want to continue this little list of things that science of mind is not, to help us then to get into who we are and how we teach this wonderful spiritual way of life. So science of mind is not a cult. Yeah, everybody go like, oh gosh. Whew, I'm so glad to hear that. The characteristic of a cult is that it teaches, that it takes away personal freedom of the followers and takes away choice. And we are quite the opposite. Today, the whole talk is going to be about that our highest intention is to help everyone to find and connect with that personal freedom and the personal choice, that power that we have. So we are not a cult. Science of Mind is also not a religion that claims that this is the only way. If you take another way, you end up someplace where you don't want to go. And we all know how that is defined. We don't do that. We understand that there's a golden thread of truth running through all faith traditions. And Dr. Ernest Holmes made it his life work to find those golden threads and put them together into the science of mind. We are not a religion with a hierarchy of priests. Now, we have a lot of ministers. You just saw all of our amazing ministers that we have here in the teaching. But we are not to be put on a pedestal. We are to be adored and, taken care of and loved up. But we are not to be put on a pedestal. We are spiritual beings, as we all are, and we are human. And that's very important to remember. So don't put us on a pedestal. This teaching does not sense or believe that God is distant or a jealous God. Quite the opposite. We believe that we are a blessing to the world, to ourselves, to one another, that we are born into a blessing and not original sin. And we are here to understand that more and more and help each other to walk home. And finally, this teaching does not believe that we are helpless, that something gets dished out to us and we are just helpless. But rather, we are to discover again and again that we, through the creative process, create and co-create our own life, our own experience. So that is a little bit about what Science of Mind is not and what it is. And for those of you who have not seen the last couple of Sunday morning messages, I invite you to go to the archives. There were some really, really great ones to explain a little bit more what we are. And so today, our title is A Riddle in Simplicity. If you have read our newsletter, you saw a riddle in there. And I know a couple people asked me for the answer. And a couple people gave me answers. So here's the riddle. From the beginning of eternity to the end of time and space, to the beginning of every end and the end of every place. And if you know it, don't say it out loud. What am I? A couple people offered eternity. They said the great I am, love, light. All right answers, not the answer this particular riddle is looking for. And so maybe this will help if we have a little hint. Now, some people might say, those are the glimpses that we get when we anchor into these teaching a little bit more. We have glimpses of, ooh, this could be the answer. And then we can reveal it. And there it is, the answer. It's hard to see here because of the lighting, but it's the E. It's the letter E. Yeah, right. It's at the beginning of eternity, at the end of time and space, at the beginning of every end, and at the end of every place. And that, my beloveds, sometimes I think that is how this riddle of life is. I think at times we make it more complicated than it is. I love how Dr. Ernest Holmes talks about it, and this is right from our textbook from the Science of Mind, from chapter 3. He says, this chapter is actually titled, A Riddle in Simplicity, and it's all about what is this thing? How does life get to be the way it is? How we experience it? And this is what Dr. Ernest Holmes said, and I adopted it a little bit for current language. The farmer has seen the heavenly host in his fields. The child has frolicked with it at play. The mother has clasped it to her breast, and the fond lover has seen it in the eyes of their beloved. We look too far away for reality. We make a riddle out of simplicity. Now, you might notice that reality there, he spelled with a capital R. And that is always an indication in this wonderful book, The Science of Mind, that it points to something important. Usually, it is the divine. And I want to read to you our definition of capital R reality. There's one infinite reality. We call it many names, including but not limited to God, life, universal spirit, infinite intelligence, first cause, or the thing itself. That is what we're talking about. How can we get back to being in such close relationship to that which is greater than we are, that we cannot name? How can we place ourselves firmly into the creative process that pulls our experience out of the unformed substance, out of the possibility of life itself? When we think about the farmer, those of us here in the room who are playing around with seeds right now, right? We see it all the time. We take a butternut squash seed and we put it in the soil, and we know that we're getting what? Very good. Yeah. That is the creative process. So now, how then do we get closer to it? How do we experience it more? How can we utilize that knowledge every moment of every day? It reminds me of a story. And it actually starts out quite challenging. This man has a heart attack in a mall. And one of the clerks sees it and calls 911, and the ambulance comes, takes him to a Catholic hospital where he undergoes bypass surgery immediately. They save his life. He wakes up and he finds a rather stern-looking nun sitting next to his bedside with a lot of forms on a clipboard. And the nun, after ensuring that he's okay to talk, says, "Do you have health insurance?" "No." "No," said the man, "I don't." "Do you have savings?" "No, there's really not a lot of money in my life." Okay, at this time, the nun is getting a little bit uptight. And she's saying, "How are you planning to pay for all of this? Do you have relatives who can pay for it?" He said, "No, I only have a spinster sister, and she is a nun." At this time, the nun is quite upset. She jumps up and she said, "She's not a spinster because nuns are married to God." And the man says, "Great, would you mind sending the bill to my brother-in-law?" All right, well, that's not the idea, but it points to this. It points to something. It points to that the divine is everywhere present, right where you sit. Take a moment where you sit, where you're leaning, where you're standing. Feel the ground underneath your feet. That is where the divine is. There is literally no place where God is not. And so we want to lean into this idea of the creative process and reclaim our role in it. We have this beautiful painting of our teaching symbol. And if you remember a couple of weeks ago, Reverend Karen Russo so beautifully talked about the thing itself, that God is really everywhere. It is shown in the circle, in everywhere, and that which has not been formed yet is really in the highest realm of the circle. And then Ron Trunnell last week spoke so powerfully about the middle area, the law, the soil, that which just says yes, yes, to whatever we imprint into the law. And so this talk is really about this V, right? It is about the activity. How are we to pull from the allness of life, from beauty, from love, from peace, from harmony, from the goodness? How are we to pull it into our experience? Because that is the creative process. And there are 3 points I would like to share with you, three things that are important in that. And the first one is that creation moves from the invisible to the visible. We often say everything is created twice, and we all know that, right? The chair you sit on, the mask you're wearing, anything you have has been an idea in the mind of someone before it could become reality that we can feel, that we can touch. And so this helps us to remember that everything originates as an idea in the divine, and then makes its way through into manifestation, into form, into something that we can see. And so it behooves us then to remember and to pay good attention to those ideas, to our thoughts. Because everything that we see in our manifest world originated somewhere. Now, if we have done work to clear out our limiting stories, because that is really where this beautiful process gets hooked, right? If we are learning, and that is what this teaching does, helps us learn to release our limiting beliefs, ideas that don't serve us anymore. Like, I'm not enough. There is not enough. That never happens to me. I am not that lucky. Any of those ideas, if we work on releasing them bit by bit, we notice in our lives that the time from idea to manifestation gets shorter and shorter. So that's the first point. Remember, it goes from invisible to visible, and we give it direction by our choice. And I think that is what this teaching does the most wonderful work with, is to help us remember that we are at choice. All the time. We choose, and we have the freedom to choose. And what becomes important then is that we do the work to see what is in our subconscious, unconscious, to find out what are, and I like to think about those things as the weeds. What are the weeds that we can pull out to truly clear up the field so that the heavenly host that is always present can bring forth the fruits that we planted, that we want to harvest. So everything is created twice. It moves through us by the law. And then the third thing is that we are spiritual. Our spiritual nature really positions us to be creative dynamos. We are creating every moment, right now. The thoughts we are thinking, the predominant atmosphere of our thought makes up how we see the world. And so that is what we need to be interested and curious about. And if there are things in our thought pattern, if we catch ourselves thinking things that are not life-affirming, well, that is our calling to go a little deeper, to ask ourselves, why do I have this reaction to whenever this happens out in the world? It brings it back to us. It brings it back to that I have a choice. Bless you. Now, one of the things that has become clear to me is that fearful energy and exciting creative energy look very much alike, at least in my world. So if I am so excited I get to be here sharing, serving this community, and I get paid for it, and I'm so excited about that. And there's a time where sometimes I am so afraid you're going to find out that I am just Karen. And it's the same power of creative energy behind that than the joy is. Do you see that? And it's so important to remember that, because that is what the law responds to. This teaching is not a teaching to sit there and just read something and say, okay, I'm going to create a happy, healthy, joyful life now. But it's responding to our energy. And it does not differentiate if it's more fear-based or enthusiastically based. And so it becomes very, very important that we clean out our thoughts. That is what is the most important thing we can do. Dr. Petra, one of the ministers of Centers for Spiritual Living in Dallas, says it this way: spirituality isn't just contemplating the qualities of the divine and trying to stay in blissful being. It is also consciously creating and living in alignment with these qualities, manifesting them in the human experience. That is where we have to take responsibility for our thoughts. One of the most powerful sentences I heard at the convention was, we have to take ownership of healing our own wounds. Because that is what happens, right? We get wounded on this journey called life, and then we make up a story about it. And we have to take ownership and responsibility to have a look at our thoughts and how am I, or might I be continuously adding to it instead of being in the business of healing myself. This, she continues, is in fact the purpose of the creative process, to move the potential of being into actualization of becoming. That is the creative process. Everybody in the sanctuary, online, raise up your hands. Go up there. Connect with that you want to bring into your life. See it, feel it, and now pull it into your experience. Now, the absolute best way I know how to do this is in our fabulous classes. Because we engage for 5 weeks in learning how to do this, walking it out, falling short, doing it again. That's what we do. And there are 4 things I want to offer that you can do this very next week. So let's start with the first one. Bless where you are. We have to bless where we are. We have to realize that whatever came before this moment brought us right here to this now moment. Take compassionate, loving inventory and bless where you are. The next point is open to your dreams. Open up. Like the exercise, we just did this simple thing. Open your arms, pull up the dream that is still unformed and pull it into your experience. And pay attention to what inspired ideas you come up with in the shower or when you least expect it. Open to your dreams. And then this is the big one. Build up true acceptance. Fully accepting what is in front of us. Not so much, how did it get here? Who put this here? Why is this here? But rather, it is here. Now I get to accept it. Because it's only when we build up that muscle of true acceptance that we can step out of it and move forward to our greater yet to be. And then the last one is keep on keeping on. Keep on going. Keep on doing the work. lean into the heavenly host, into that which is greater than we are, into God itself. Lean into this New Vision Center. Lean into the practitioners, into the ministers. Lean in and keep on going. I am so grateful we are on this journey together. Thank you. Beautiful. And now, let us all go upstairs in our mind. Let's go up there and feel this divine presence. I invite every practitioner, every minister, every person inspired to take a stand. And let's stand for the deep knowingness that God and I are one eternally. And so we breathe in. We breathe into the deep knowingness of God Almighty, Spirit, sweet, sweet Spirit, being right where we are. We recognize it as love, as peace, as harmony, as joy, as abundance. And with every breath, we feel closer, closer than our heartbeat. And we consciously realize that we are one with it. We lift up the veil of separation and know that we are one. We are one in the one. We have our being in this divine energy. And from this place, all is being created. All is being brought forth. And so I claim for this beloved community and for all people, love and peace is made present in their life. That the experience of elegant solution is making themselves known with ease and grace. That we become clear on what it is that we want to have in our life and that we are inspired to bring it forth in love, in light, in peace, in harmony. And feeling the energy of the divine pulsing through our veins, we are ready for whatever is to come. And so I call it good. I call it very good. I place this word into universal law. I let it be, knowing it is done, it is complete. And together we anchor this truth as we say, and so it is.